I think the number one indicator of success of a business is how much value it creates for its customers and how well aligned it is with the needs of its customers. The way in which we shop, do our finances, connect with our friends, date, learn. I mean, it would be hard to think of any aspect of our lives which hasn't been significantly changed by the smartphone, by ubiquitous connectivity, and by all of the different platforms which we use all the time. And so the bottom line is, your customer is very different today than it was certainly 10 years ago. And as many have noted, COVID has accelerated the pace of that digital transformation. So the truth is, your customer is different today than they even were 18 months ago.
The following is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that helps you get the job, manage the job, and get credit.
Hey, this is Gordon Henry at Winning on Main Street. And this week you get to meet Howard Tiersky. Howard is an inspiring and passionate public speaker, the founder and CEO of From, the digital transformation agency. He's the author of the Wall Street Journal bestseller, Winning Digital Customers, The Antidote to Irrelevance, and the Amazon bestseller, Impactful Online Meetings. IDG, which is one of the world's leading media and marketing companies, named Howard one of the 10 digital transformation influencers to follow today. And Enterprise Management 360 named Howard one of the top 10 digital transformation influencers that will change your world. Howard also just launched the Winning Digital Customers podcast, so plenty to talk about there. Welcome, Howard.
Thanks, Gordon. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. So Howard, first, just maybe I thought we'd start with your agency. Tell us about your agency, From, that's F-R-O-M, for those who are listening, and what you do there.
Sure. We're a team of about 100 people. We work primarily with large brands on digital transformation, which usually means coming in and assessing where are they now in terms of the effectiveness of their customer journey in this digital age, and then identifying areas of improvement and working with them to redesign websites, mobile applications, and other kinds of digital tools, and helping them wherever they need help, which could include the creative side, the technology side, the ongoing operations side, et cetera. Our goal is to identify ways they can make more money through better digital, and then be with them every step of the way from the idea to when the money is coming back into their bank account.
Great. So you've studied and written a lot about digital transformation. We'll get into it in more detail, but just at a high level, what do those words mean to you? And to our audience of small business owners, how should they be thinking about digital transformation?
Sure. Well, I think the number one indicator of success of a business is how much value it creates for its customers and how well aligned it is with the needs of its customers. The first thing I think about digital transformation is not about the digital transformation of a business, which is very often how people think about it, but in terms of a digital transformation that's occurred in the world over the last, let's say, 10 or 15 years, and which has occurred in all of our customers. Just think about ourselves as customers of all the different brands we do business with. The way in which we shop, do our finances, connect with our friends, date, learn. I mean, it would be hard to think of any aspect of our lives which hasn't been significantly changed by the smartphone, by ubiquitous connectivity, and by all of the different platforms which we use all the time. And so the bottom line is, your customer is very different today than it was certainly 10 years ago. And as many have noted, COVID has accelerated the pace of that digital transformation. So the truth is, your customer is different today than they even were 18 months ago. And so for a business to remain successful and hopefully become more successful, you have to be tracking the customer. If the customer is changing and you're not changing, then you have to assume that you're becoming less and less relevant to the customer. And that's not going to work for long-term business success. So the digital transformation of a business, to me, starts from asking, well, wait, where's my customer now? Where's the gap between, and most businesses today have a gap between their customers' digital expectations and what they can deliver, because those expectations are set by the very best. Those expectations are set by Amazon, by Uber, by Airbnb. And when you're not living up to that, then it's like, hey, wait a minute, why not? So identifying where those gaps are and figuring out how you can best close those gaps through whatever combination of small changes or massive overhauls is what's needed in order to be able to get where you need to go. What I like to say is, I think every company needs to be asking themselves the question, Not how hard is it going to be to catch up, but rather if I was starting this business right now and I was trying to create a business that could stand toe to toe with any competitor in the market and would be loved by today's customer who's living a digitally centric lifestyle, what would that business look like? That's the first question. And then only secondarily, okay, that's not where I am now. I'm over here. What's it going to take for me to get there? And that's very much what my book is about, is how to map that journey and then how to step by step, make the transition from where you are to where you need to be.
Great. So yeah, we've focused on that quite a bit on the show about how consumer expectations are they almost jump to the highest level automatically. Like, because Amazon gets you the package in 24 hours, you expect everybody to do that. Because Uber, you see the little car driving up to your doorstep on your phone screen, you expect everybody to do that. Or Domino's sends the pizza and it arrives in 29 minutes and you can track it from the oven to your house. All those things set new expectations. So for the small business that doesn't have the resources of those big companies, it doesn't have the IT staff, it doesn't have the development or any of that, how did they begin? To your point, I guess you said your journey, your mapping. How do they start thinking about getting to where they need to be?
Sure. Well, first of all, you're absolutely right. And some might say it's kind of unfair. I'm just this little business and my customers' expectations are being set by what the very best digital companies are doing, by companies that have billions of dollars. Well, boo-hoo for you, that's the reality, right? You want to win those customers, you have to deal with the competitive situation. And while it is true that if you're, say, a plumbing company and your customers' expectations are set by Amazon, that is a little bit apples and oranges. However, let's take your last example, Domino's. Who competes with Domino's? Well, I guess Pizza Hut and companies like that, but your local corner pizzeria also competes with Domino's. Who competes with Starbucks? Well, actually, I don't even know if they have any big chains left. I guess Dunkin' Donuts, right? But also the little coffee shop on the corner. So the truth is that as large companies are getting better and better at filling those digital needs, digital expectations that their customers have, that is your competition. And you can't deny it just because you say, well, it's not fair to compare them to me. Your customer is comparing when they decide to turn right and go to Starbucks, or turn left and go to, Rosie's Cafe that only is in the corner, is in your little town. But here's the good news. And I think this plays right into what you do, Gordon, which is that so many platforms now help level the playing field for small businesses, because, Amazon built their own e-commerce platform from the ground up. They wrote the whole darn thing. I think they even write their own databases. I think they build their own computers from scratch, right? Like out of atoms. I don't know.
They mine their own copper.
Right. They don't buy them from, Dell or whoever, right? Like they literally, exactly. They mine their own precious materials, right? So, okay, that's not what you're going to do as a small business, but the reality is that you don't need to anymore. 15, 20 years ago, yeah, maybe you were like, if I can't afford to build a platform like that, I can't really compete. But that's no longer true at all. And that is absolutely not an excuse. And, if you're let's say an e-commerce platform, let's say you're a store and you want to go into e-commerce, Shopify, man, or a number of competitors to Shopify, and if you're not familiar with that, that's just an online platform where you can create an inexpensive account and start uploading pictures of what you're selling, set the prices, and build a store that looks a heck of a lot like whatever e-commerce stores you shop on today without needing any technical knowledge. You can upload your logo, your graphics, and you see the same kind of thing. If you're a restaurant and you want to allow people to sit at a table and order their meal, there are platforms that allow you to do that. I think Square owns one of them now, and you set up an iPad in the kitchen and people set it, so you can implement these things with minimal need for customization. Now, you may have ideas how to make them even more unique and differentiated, but to just level the playing field, all you have to do is go find a platform and implement it. Now, I don't mean to minimize the level of effort of that. And you have to be careful about a salesperson from Shopify or anywhere else who says, oh, just put in your credit card number and the next day you're going to have an e-commerce shop. Well, no, there's still work to be done. But the point is, it's not the kind of thing that should be out of reach for most small businesses to do. You may need to hire a local consultant, or you may need to assign a couple people on your team to take a class and spend a month getting it done. But it is absolutely within the grasp of any business to do that. So I think that's a beautiful thing for small business today. And the last thing I want to say about small and medium businesses is actually you have a potential big advantage compared to these large players. Imagine you're Dunkin' Donuts and you want to allow online ordering, which by now they already have, but let's just pretend that they didn't have it. think of what an undertaking that is. Think of how many Dunkin' Donuts there are. Think of how many people you'd have to train, et cetera, right? Massive undertaking. Now, imagine you're a small donut shop in your town with only one location and you want to enable online ordering. Find a platform. You should be able to have it up and running in a couple of weeks. You got to train your 3 people and you're done and you're ready to go. So you can be faster, more agile, and more nimble. After all, that is one of the greatest strengths of small and medium businesses. So instead of saying, oh man, they're so big, they have resources I don't have, I can't keep up, realize the opposite is true. There's platforms you can use and you can move faster than they can.
In your book, Winning Digital Customers, I think you lay out like a 5-step process for any company to maximize their competitiveness and sort of build a vision for what we're talking about here, which is their customer experience. Can you sort of give us, maybe you can give us all 5 steps, maybe not right off the top of your head, but can you give us a way to think about that from the perspective of the small business?
Sure. Yeah. Let me tell you what the 5 steps are, and we can talk about whatever part you like. So the first step is to understand your customer. And we talk in the book about a wide range of research techniques, which absolutely are doable by small businesses. You don't necessarily have to hire an outside company to do this kind of work, but it's really just about making sure, do you really understand what your customers need right now and how their needs have changed? If you're a small business, you probably interact with your customers a lot, but nevertheless, you may not be asking them the kinds of questions. In the book, I recommend some specific things to ask about and how to do it. To really make sure that you're up to speed on what your customers really care about and frankly, where you might be disappointing them. The second step is to map the journey, and that's both a current and future model. So it kind of almost an extension of understanding the customer is to say, what actually happens when your customer goes through the process of looking to whatever business you're in, you're solving someone's problem. If you're a bakery, you're solving the birthday cake problem or whatever. So when they have that kind of need, what do your customers do? How do they find you? How do they order from you? What's their experience? And most importantly, where are you letting them down? Where are they experiencing frustration, anger, pain, extra effort, annoyance, disappointment? Because that's the core of your business, really, is what the customer experience is. And then the third step is to build it, to build the future. And usually once you've created that vision of the customer journey, there's a bunch of different touch points that require modifications. It might require installation of a CRM system or a content management system or a new WordPress website or Shopify or any one of a wide range of things. Maybe you need an app, maybe you need an Alexa skill, whatever it may be. So each of those discrete things has to be built. And it's not just having the right general idea, but each thing needs to be done well. So those are the 3 kind of serial steps, if you will: understanding the customer, map the current and future journey, and then build it. And when it comes to building it, in the book, we talk a lot about design thinking principles. And I won't go into detail on that unless you want to dive more into it. But I just want to emphasize that the process as described in the book can be a process that companies undertake for years, but it can also be a very rapid process. My suggestion to people is don't skip the steps, just move more quickly through them. Anyway, the last 2 things I'll just mention briefly, because they kind of happen in parallel with those first 3. The fourth is to optimize the present. And all that really means is that usually when you create this vision of, like I said earlier, what would be the business if I was building it from scratch right now, it's usually not something you can accomplish in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. It's usually going to be a journey to get there. And so you don't want to forget to, as you start to get all this insight into where your customer's experience isn't everything it could be, some of the things may require a whole new CRM system or something else. Some of them may just be a better sign, changing a button, making it easier to see on a website, whatever. So you want to make sure you're thinking about those small things that are low effort. Sometimes there's some amazingly high ROI from very small changes. You just haven't taken the time to find out what they are. And then the last is leadership. How do you inspire people? How do you get people excited about change? Because most people aren't naturally super enthusiastic about change. You have to really help get them to that place of enthusiasm to get their full involvement. So those are the 5 steps.
We're going to take a quick 30-second break to hear a word from our sponsor, and we're going to be back with more from Howard Tiersky.
This episode of Winning on Main Street is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that includes everything small business owners need to meet their customers' expectations. Thryv's award-winning and fully mobile interface delivers technology previously reserved for big business to the fingertips of small business owners nationwide. Thryv's built specifically for small business, but there's nothing small about what it can do. Thryv handles your entire customer experience, helping business owners reach more customers, stay organized, get paid faster, and generate online reviews, all from a single device or screen. To learn more about Thryv, visit winningonmainstreet.com and click on Get a Demo. When it comes to software to run your business, there's no comparison. Check out Thryv today.
And we're back with Howard Tiersky. Fascinating conversation about automation and change and really how small businesses begin this journey of becoming a more automated digital company. It's really a lot to think about, but I think for all small businesses, beginning to move towards this idea of becoming easier to do business with, removing friction from the customer experience, having the data to know what does your customer need, those kinds of things are really invaluable in terms of building a more valuable business that maybe someday you can sell for more than you would think. So we're going to talk just a few more minutes here with Howard. This idea that you talk about business change and adopting new ways of doing things, are they receptive to that? You feel like most business people today, they know that that they sort of gotta get in the game with this somehow. So whether it's a big company or small, they sort of understand this message?
I think most people today are on board with the idea that the world is changing. But there's a cartoon that I use in my slides sometimes that I love. I just stole it from the internet. I don't know who drew it originally, but there's a guy behind a podium and he says to the audience, "Who wants change?" And then you see everybody's hands go up. And then he says, "Who wants to change?" And nobody's hands go up. So all of a sudden, change doesn't seem so appealing when it comes to you personally. So that's resistance again that we always have to think about.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it's okay as long as it's for the other guy. I was just curious about you personally again, and your agency and how you got off the ground. So in addition to being a speaker and consultant and idea guy for other people's businesses, you're running your own business, as we said, a 100-person agency, digital transformation agency called From, F-R-O-M. What's your entrepreneurial story? How did you launch and build your business?
Well, I worked for 16 years, I think it was, for Ernst & Young Consulting. And at one point they got acquired by Capgemini, but it was sort of a continuous job, just different companies through M&A. And so I had the great opportunity to really get schooled in how a large consulting company runs, how you find clients, how you hire people, build teams, run projects, make sure the bills get paid, do contracts, all these different things. And so after I'd been there for quite a while, I had a yearning to do this more independently for a combination of reasons. I didn't want to travel as much as my company wanted me to, and some other things. And I just thought it would be fun to give it a shot. Really, it wasn't too much more complicated than that, but I also really felt appreciative of the fact that after all those years, I'd kind of learned most parts of the business, and I kind of felt like I didn't need to be I didn't need the infrastructure. I didn't need the expertise that was there. And that was 14 years ago, something like that.
That's great. Great story. I know you're a family man, you have a wife, you have a bunch of kids. Running a business the way you do and speaking all over, how do you manage your time? How do you manage the professional obligations and the personal obligations?
Leverage. I think the key thing is to not try to do everything yourself. The reality is it kind of comes down to, well, what's your time worth? And if you can hire someone for, I don't know, these days with COVID, of course, everybody wants more money, but if you can hire someone for $25 an hour, if your time's worth more than that, which usually is, if you're whatever business you're in, if you're a plumber or you're a lawyer or whatever, to do the things that you don't need to be the one to do, then, well, that's usually going to be better for your business. Because the risk otherwise is nobody's tending the store when you're off doing the business of the business, et cetera. And so, and I frankly, with my family as well, we have people that, I try not to be one of those parents who's like not with my kids, but when it comes to, needing to have the kids driven around in the afternoon, all various things, the laundry, et cetera, not being the one to, and my wife works as well. So just making sure we've got other people who are helping us. We're very blessed to have had a lot of great people who help us in those areas. And then I can spend my time, in the ways that I want and not doing tasks that I'd rather not be doing.
Yeah, sounds great. Last question. What do you do for fun?
Well, I mentioned my fish tank, and scuba diving is probably my biggest passion over the years. Of course, with the travel restrictions, I haven't been able to do it as much the last couple of years. And now I got 2 of my kids and my wife are all scuba diving certified. And as the kids reach a certain age, we're getting them all certified. So that's probably one of the things that I love the most, separate from the work that I do.
Well, Howard, thank you so much for stopping by. This has been a great time for me, and I hope our listeners will enjoy it. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And last thing I should have asked you before, but how should people get in touch with you? If there's somebody listening who'd like to hire you in some way, what's the easiest way to reach out?
Sure. Well, if you're interested in the book, you can find it pretty much anywhere books are sold, but also there's a website for the book, which is at winningdigitalcustomers.com, all one word, of course. And you can also download the first chapter of the book there for free if you want. I publish a lot on LinkedIn. I do a couple of live casts a week there, and you can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Howard Tiersky. My podcast, as you mentioned earlier, that's also called Winning Digital Customers. You can find that in all the usual podcast spots. And my company is From, and the URL for our company website is from.digital. So if you're learning about that, you can find it there.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please tell a friend or colleague to subscribe. We'd really appreciate it, and leave us a 5-star review. Until next time, make it a great week.